Welcome, everybody, to The Calling. It's our first responder podcast coming to you right here at Sober Life Studios. I'm your host, Scott Jones. I want to thank you for joining us. I hope where everybody's getting off to a great start for the new year, 2024. God knows we've screwed up the last few years with everything from COVID to politics, but there's always something going on. Let's hope for a little peace and serenity for everybody this year. But again, I want to remind you, if you like this show, please like us and share us with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll know what we have coming up. I have a great guest. This is Sergeant. Yes, this is a sergeant next to me. She looks all nice and innocent, but she can tell me what to do. Sergeant Sabina Shapiro, and you are a police officer down here in South Florida, in one of the towns down here in South Florida. And we're not going to get specific on the town because we want to talk about things in a more general sense instead of what's going on in one particular place. But welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I was shocked to find out you've been in law enforcement for 16 years.
It's my 16th year anniversary on the 14th of January. I've been employed since 2008.
Wow. Is this what you always wanted to do? Were you a little kid saying, I'm going to be a cop?
I was a little kid in Eastern Europe, and my dad brought me the Police Academy movies from the 80s.
You're kidding me.
I am serious.
Those goofy movies are what inspired you?
I thought that if I ever moved to the United States, that's what police work is going to be about, just like those movies. And maybe it's not exactly like the movies, but the movies are not far off.
You know, it's funny because I don't know if you know old TV from here, but we've had like NYPD Blue,
yes,
and we've had there was another New York show. There was Law and Order, and then there was an old comedy called Barney Miller.
I don't know that one.
But it's really goofball stuff. It's just crazy. And they went around and asked police which one of these shows really represents, and they talked about NYPD Blue and all these other ones, and The Shield and all those shows. And most people would say it's really more like Barney Miller, where there's a lot of time where you're just kind of goofing around with the people you're working with. It's actually there is some levity there, right? It's not all serious.
No, there has to be a coping mechanism, and a lot of cops are funny. They're funny people.
Well, I tell you what, the people we've been meeting, Karen and I, with one brother, one sister, have been phenomenal people all over South Florida. We've gone to put some police departments up into Palm and beyond into the other counties, but great people. All right. So you want to be this? You say, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to be a police officer.
That's exactly what happened.
Did you ever stray from the course, or that was it?
When we moved on work visas. We didn't move. We had to wait for the green cards. And then it took us 13 years of living here to become citizens. We did everything legally. 13 years is a long time. I came here when I was 14. So in my late 20s, I just became a citizen. So I had to kind of navigate. I worked full-time at the end of high school. I worked full-time in college. And I had other opportunities. But at the end of the day, I always said, you know what, this is what I want to do. At some point, I did apply for the Coast Guard. And I got rejected from the Coast Guard only because I had a tattoo in the back of my head. I have a tiny, tiny little muffin. You can barely see it.
Oh, wow. And they rejected you for that?
The Coast Guard rejected me because they
somehow
said,
that's not going to let you jump into the water and save somebody?
Said, when your hair is up in uniform, it doesn't look professional. You have to get it removed. I did not have the money back then to remove it. I just didn't. I didn't have back then. Removal of tattoos was ridiculous. It was like $1,000. I just didn't have it. So and my goal to go into Coast Guard was really to become a citizen sooner, so I can be a police officer. So that didn't work out. But within a few months, we got our notifications. We took our test. We became citizens.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure I got sworn in Palm Beach the same day. Me and my dad went down to local police departments, and we just dropped off a couple applications.
Have you been with a couple different places? Or
no, just one.
Just one department?
But at the time, in the 2008, it wasn't like now. Now there's a need for police officers. Departments are hiring. In 2008, it wasn't like that. It was a job people were like seeking. Everybody wanted it. When I tested in the police academy for like my application, you had to pass some physical stuff. It was me and like 2 other girls. And we passed, we got our stuff, and we left. 6 months later, in mid '08, when I was leaving the academy, when I was done, there was like 30, 40 people waiting to test. It was the market crash. It was,
yeah.
a lot of realtors and people that were in this kind of industries decided, whoa, this government job is better. We're going to go for it. But when I was looking for a job, there was almost no positions. I'm happy I got in when I got in. And then years later, now we're down 10, 15 officers out of departments. Everybody's struggling to staff. But in '08, it wasn't like that. People wanted the job.
So not as many people are even going after being a police officer as there was.
At this time, yes, it changed.
Do you have any idea why the changes happened? Is it because they don't want to be a police officer? Is it because there's maybe almost a racist attitude towards the police officers? Like, I don't want to be one of the cops because we're all bad. I mean, but that's not, it seems like we've moved away from that. We had a little bit of that a few years ago, which was bad.
It's really up and down. So police work is very almost like the military. You have 40 hours a week you have to work. You have to be there on holidays, days off. You're on a shift schedule. And I feel that the new generations don't want a shift schedule.
Well, it's the same as firefighters, and firefighters are very similar, right?
Yeah, but they work 24 hours and get 2 days off.
Then that's right, because they actually stay at the station.
Yes.
You don't.
Yes.
You guys don't sleep at the station.
I get to leave. Yes. I get to leave and go home.
I've been to a few stations. I didn't see any cots there, except for in those cells where I spent my time. But anyway, we won't talk about that.
But everybody likes a firefighter. Everybody likes them. They don't arrest people. They don't mingle into your life. They don't give you tickets. They don't. They show up. They save lives. They put out fires. They save the cats from the trees, and then they disappear. When the police come, they don't leave until the call is done or until their investigation is done. And sometimes it's in your favor, and sometimes it's not. And if it's not in your favor, you don't like the police. And you recruit other people to not like the police.
So let's talk about that. Now, obviously, listen, I am absolutely for all first responders. Our military, thank God for them. Our firefighters, thank God. Our doctors, our nurses, thank God. And for our police, thank God for them. They're doing a job that's difficult to do. And I wish everybody would adopt that attitude. And if you do run into a police officer, well, don't run into them because you get a ticket for that. But if you do see one, you know, not to stereotype, but if you see one at a donut shop, say hi and thank them for their service. You see somebody in uniform, thank them for their service. They're doing a job that nobody wants to do. I mean, or it's hard to do. But I got to ask you, you want to be a police officer, you're a kid, you get this image in your head, then you get in there. Now you're dealing with a lot of crap. You're right. Police show up. There's some neighborhoods you show up, and 90% of the people don't want you there. There's other neighborhoods where 90% of the people do want you there. And that must be hard to deal with, never knowing if they're going to, it could be a simple thing you're walking into, but they might already have a prejudice against you.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that?
I treat it like the movie Hunger Games or like driving on I-95. You don't know who your friend is. You don't know who your enemy is. You got to navigate around it. You develop such a good attitude because you want to go home and you want to be happy. You want to live your life. You don't want what goes on in those 10 hours, 12 hours for some officers. You don't want to come home and have that affect you. And then you get so used to it that it doesn't bother you. For most officers, it doesn't bother them.
But you want to walk. I guess it's hard for people to understand who don't have to do that.
Yes.
Unless you work at the DMV, most people aren't universally have problems. Police officers do, just because, first of all, most of the people you come into contact, not all, but a lot of people you come into contact are probably doing something they either shouldn't do or they're around something that's going on that's not good. It's not like they just show up and say, "Hey, we just stopped by to say hello and see how you're doing today."
Yeah.
So you've already got a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. So we don't know what that's like. You want to go in and be the friendly police officer. You want to be the friendly constable, the one who can come in and you want to get to know your neighborhoods and your communities, and you want to do all that. but you also got to go in guarded at the same time. How do you balance that in yourself?
It's funny because sometimes I always think people are lying to me. I always do. I start off, I have to tell myself there's a chance they're not. But I always feel like people are lying. I'll tell you the funniest thing. You walk up to someone and you say, let me have your driver's license. And they say no. And you say, but you called me here to take a report. Well, I don't want to give you my information. But you called for me to get the information from you.
Right.
Well, I don't want to give you my information. So what are we doing here? So now you have to take a step back and negotiate and explain and bring them to your side. Because if you don't, you just look at them like, okay, well, you called me here. I was here. Now I'm leaving. Don't call back. But if you do call back, I'll come back. But you figure it out. You wanted me here. Now you don't want me here. You got to make up your mind. You just learn over the years to appreciate the public. I love people. I love all kinds of people. I get excited to go on calls and talk to people because you never know who you're going to meet. And some people are fun and some people are not okay.
It's got to be satisfying too when you come into something and somebody's guarded against you, or they're maybe
and
they got an attitude and you win them over.
Yes.
That's got to be a great feeling.
Yes, it is a great feeling. It is a great feeling when you give somebody a ticket and they just say, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't mean to do that. I'll never do it again. You taught me a lesson.
And I'm going to tell you something. Most of the time, if you act that way with the officer, accept the ticket, go to court, and act the same way, they'll tear up 90% of those tickets.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
You had a good driving record? They'll do it.
They're like, okay, well, be careful next time. Don't do that. But your job, now, again, let's go back to the movies and the ideas about police work. The movies, everybody thinks that, what was that Mel Gibson movie with he was a cop?
Oh, Lethal
Weapon.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks, every time a cop shows up,
Eddie Murphy, and he was so good.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, he was so fun.
That was.
See, people. The movie.
What was it? Eddie Murphy. Yeah. People see that and they think every time a cop goes out there drawing their gun, they're hiding around the corner. But 90% of your job is ambassador, isn't it?
Yes. It's just really helping people get through their day.
Because sometimes the calls you go on, they're not even like real calls because it's something that's resolved without anybody having an issue.
Even accidents. Sometimes there's a car accident. By the time the officers get there, it's already resolved. They exchange information and they leave. So a lot of stuff resolves itself before police involvement. But then there's serious stuff that the officers need to be.
And you just, again, that's where you have that when you're pulling up to something, you're ready to walk out and be officer friendly. And I'm going to talk to everybody, but you're also ready to protect you and your partner and the community.
Yes. I can't imagine my parents having me not come home, So I want to do everything in my power during that 10 hours that I'm there.
Yeah.
So I go home. And so my other buddies go home okay. So we're all surviving the day because, as you know, every year the statistics are high. There's officers being killed on duty, whether it's car accidents, shootings, suicides, other freak accidents. We don't want to be part of that. You want to have a fulfilling career, and then you want to leave and do something else, or you want to leave and retire and be on a different spectrum.
You really love what you do, though. It's coming through with everything you're saying. You love what you do.
I love what I do. I'm very passionate about it. And I'm coming on my last 7 to 10 years because I can retire in about 6 or 7 if I want to. I can choose to stay later. But now I'm looking for plan B. I am like, what's my dad, who's so funny. He's 77. He's a menace to society. He's caused... He's interacted with police before, mostly positive. He's done some funny stuff. But he looked at me and he said, listen, you are right there. What are you going to do? It's you 7 years left. Are you going to continue with police work? Or are you going to go another route? And I said, well, I want to help police, but I don't want to carry the uniform because it's hard on the body.
So you want to get involved and maybe make some sort of bridge between community and police. Get involved in those kind of work.
Mental health counseling, stuff like that. I'm looking into getting a master's, going back to school, just so I can.
That's beautiful.
So when I moved to the States, I wanted to give back to the country that took me in. That was my goal. So I became a police officer. Now, when I'm about to leave police work, I want to come back to police work and give them back what I got from it. And if that means helping other officers get through their career, because now I have the experience of getting through mine, that would be my biggest dream. Just to continue, just a little bit of an involvement.
Now, you brought up the mental health thing. let's talk about that. And here in South Florida, wherever you are, this is a big issue.
It is.
You know, everything from individual calls, somebody pulls a gun, or there's the threat of violence, and that gets you going, and you got to do something with that.
Yeah.
Then you also have these extreme things. You end up with vehicle accidents where there's fatalities.
Yeah.
The seaside collapse. A lot of people were affected by the Surfside.
Yeah, Surfside. That was terrible.
Firefighters and police were all affected. They had to stand there for hours and watch
department
this
is
stuff
amazing.
happen.
Those guys did a phenomenal job.
And the people that came to their aid, all of the cities and all of the towns and the counties were all down there, and they were lined up to a point where they're like, okay, stay back because we got too many people, but be ready to come in for the next shift. But those kind of things happen to you guys. You don't get to say, oh, I saw it on the news, I'm going to turn that off, because that's what I did. I'm at home, I'm watching this, and it's like I could watch so much that I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. You don't get to do that. You have to stand there and be in it. Every day, in some way, there is something that is going to be triggering, or at least an uneasiness, until you know you're safe and everything's cool. In the old days, we were talking about this before the show. In the old days, the standard was firefighter, police officer, whatever you are. You have a bad day, you go to the bar, you have some drinks, you mellow out, you self-medicate, and then you go home. And that was the therapy. And that's not working anymore because the rates of alcoholism and addictions and other things are through the roof. So what's going on with police officer wellness and mental health today? Is it different?
There is definitely some movement. A lot of departments have developed peer support groups where officers are welcome to come and seek help from their peers. If they are not comfortable with their peers in their department, they can seek out from other departments. But I have to tell you, for example, our department did provide us with an hour of mental health last year. Just speaking to a counselor, talking to them about what's going on, seeing, I guess they were looking for something to see if there anybody in additional services. I feel like when I was in the police academy in 2008, there was not a block of work where someone came in with mental health, what do you call it? Not certificates, like a psychologist or someone that would come in and explain mental health to you.
Just the education into mental health.
Right, coping mechanisms. There was nothing taught. You were taught to be tough, toughen it up, suck it up, get in there, do the work.
Nobody had ever even heard of the word self-care back then.
There was no self-care, no wellness, no self-care, nothing like that. It was
suck it up, buttercup.
You have to be you have to suck it up, and you have to be physically fit because that's what police officers are.
Yeah.
And nobody talked about being mentally fit and having coping mechanisms. Every once in a while, I would take a training class, and there was a little block on mental health and wellness. But that would come from, let's say, a guest speaker would come in, and they were involved in a shooting. They were involved in losing a partner at work, like another officer. They would come in and they would talk about coping and how they had to deal with it and how hard it was, and they gave you little tips. But those were just tidbits. There were little tidbits that where you left the class and you were like, wow, that poor person, that's what happened to them. They lost their fellow coworker at work, and now they're dealing with it. And then you moved on. Then you went to the bar and you had a couple of drinks, and you're like, forgot about it because it didn't happen to you.
And I want to let everybody know, if you were one of the old schoolers, we're not making an indictment on you because there was not an awareness back then, and that was what you had. Yeah. That's what you had. But there's an awareness now, so we're moving into. But we're not picking on anybody because that's the way they came through it.
Yeah,
absolutely
nothing's wrong with that.
Yeah.
I was talking to a retired officer the other day, and he said he would run. He would go home and he would run for 7 miles, and that was his Xanax. Also, back then, there was no prescription medication. You couldn't just get Xanax because you were upset at work.
Yeah.
And, like the officers didn't go look, and there was a stigma. Are you on medication? What are you on? What did you get? How did
people
you get
said
it?
PTSD was the same as crazy.
Yeah,
that's what they thought.
Yes.
We didn't understand trauma, cumulative trauma. We didn't understand any of that, or at least it wasn't common knowledge.
Yeah, so a lot of people coped by drinking, by other behaviors, gambling, staying up all night, doing all kinds of stuff. And it takes a toll on the body. Your body takes a toll. Eventually, organs start, your blood work is off, your blood pressure is off. Next thing you know, you're on all kinds of medication for stuff that really can be fixed with just some wellness and mental health.
Takes a toll on the body, takes a toll on the spirit of the person,
and spirit,
their mind, and their families.
Yes.
We see a lot of families falling apart.
Are 50-50 in police work. 50% chance you and your spouse are not going to make it. And there's it's so hard on civilians that are married to police officers. Not a lot of people understand the shift schedule. There's officers on midnights for years. They work from 10 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning, and they sleep all day. So when their spouse is a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, they sleep when they're at work. When they come from work, the police officer wakes up. It's 5 p.m., probably have something to eat, have a little conversation, and then get changed and then go to work. That's not a lot of time for interaction. It's not a time for the children to do homework, cooking, and just hanging out. And then the night goes by, and the civilian wakes up in the morning, and they're alone again. And then they're angry, tired. Spouse comes in. It has to be teamwork. It has to be. Everybody has to be on board.
That's one of the things I would like to see change is having workshops for families several times a year. Workshops where you explain trauma. You explain, listen, when they come home and slam the door, don't immediately take offense to that. Understand what they're bringing through the house with them, and know, how do I approach them? How do I talk to them? Learning, you and your husband are funny because he's a firefighter and you're a police officer.
Yes, I'm lucky.
The chances of one of you having a bad day is high.
High, yes.
So, both of you being first responders, but different ends of different services. How do you guys manage that? Do you guys have open communication where somebody, when you come in, are you able to say things to each other?
We do, but I usually hold it in. So my therapy is my drive home from work. My therapy is my 30+ minute drive home from work. I either put on a podcast or music, but I do evaluate my day. I say, this is what happened today. This is how you're going to cope with it. And I use that 30 minutes to relax my mind. So when I walk through the door, I'm nice.
Right.
When I walk through the door, I don't bombard him with everything bad that happened. I take a deep breath and I eat and I do whatever I need to do. And if I choose to tell him, I tell him. And if it's something I think I can just do it on my own, I don't.
And sometimes, obviously that's a great plan. I've been self-soothing
doing this for years.
But I'm sure there's times when it's like home. It was a little bit beyond just that. So you might get home. Are you able to say, listen, I had a really tough day. I just need to sit and be quiet for a while and to take care of myself. So
are you allowed to do that? I think he knows. I think he sees. I think
you guys sense that probably.
So we've been married 10 years this September.
Oh, congrats!
And we've been together 15 years on my 16-year anniversary as a police officer.
Oh, wow.
So he's been with me from after the academy on. So he knows. Like, he sees me come in and he's like, oh, shit, not today. Yeah.
But imagine families. Now, he's got an understanding because he has to face similar stressors.
Yes.
But most families don't understand.
I have to tell you, we don't have kids, which is I feel like it's a huge deal. We don't have the extra stressors. We're not responsible for other lives.
Yeah.
We have our pets and we love our pets. Our pets are our stress reducers. We don't have that extra. I can't imagine dealing with all this stuff and then having another person.
Another little being you got to take care of. And
I can't imagine that is stressful.
That
Those officers need some time for themselves and they need some support, and they like a good support mechanism.
Now I'm seeing more and more at the police departments, especially down here in South Florida, because this is where I live now. So I see these and I train at these places, and I see a lot of them, the fitness centers and the services that they're supplying to them. If they were to take advantage, not everybody does, but if they were to take advantage of that, this is a huge step in self-care and wellness for police officers.
We have in health insurance. We have an app with the health insurance. my health insurance pays me for 15,000 steps or a 30-minute workout. It pays me for sleeping at night, and it pays me for a flu shot. It pays me for blood check. I can get $300 gift card at the end of the year just for living a healthy lifestyle.
Because you're saving them so much money by taking care of yourself. What
I'm
a
like
brilliant idea.
I know, I love it. My watch is hooked up to
If
my
you're an
app.
insurance company, listen to this shit. This is good.
I think a lot of insurance companies have done it. I think so. It's great. It's like a motivator. Like, oh, I'm gonna get 3 pairs of Lululemon leggings at the end of the year because I've been such a healthy person.
So we're heading in a good direction.
We are.
We still got a long way to go.
Yes, I agree.
Let me ask you about, has the needle moved on stigma of not being okay, being able to say I'm not okay? Has the needle moved on that? Is it better? Is it
a little bit?
We got a long way to go.
A little bit. I don't see a lot of people coming forward and saying that they're not okay. They're just not. I hope they're doing it on their own. I hope they're not, if they don't want to go through administrative things, if they don't want to go through peer support, if they don't want to go, if they don't want things to be known, I hope when they need help, if they can do it on their own. Because, like I said, insurance companies are really good. There's a lot of treatment centers that insurance work with that you can go to on your own. And then if you speak to your HR department, I think they're okay with giving you a couple of weeks off without making it, broadcasting that you're going in for some mental health issues or substance issues. I realize that substance and mental health, they mix.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, if you feel off, you feel that the drink, the Xanax, something is going to make you feel better.
The funny thing is if you have depression, anxiety, or anything like that,
you're just adding to it.
You're self-medicating with the alcohol and drugs. Now you're creating an addiction. Now you could also just take alcohol and drugs, create an addiction, which then will create a back end of anxiety and depression.
Yes.
So either way you end up, that there's like 70% overlap between mental health and addiction, that they're shared. So that's really, really important. People coming forward. If people were to say, especially after something like Surfside or something like maybe a call, God forbid, school shootings and things like that.
Parkland. That was devastating for the officers.
In no matter what department you were in, whether you were on that call or not, we're all feeling it.
Yes.
And you're kind of like, this could happen tomorrow here.
Yeah.
But so that's really stressful. If we were able to just, even after the simple things of maybe a traffic stop gone a little bit crazy, or something as horrible as a school shooting, you should be able to walk through and say, you know what, I just want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling. And when we reach that point, that's what we're aiming for. And it's not just with police officers, it's with society. We got this. Why do we have so many mass shootings?
I don't know.
Because we're not dealing with mental health.
It has to be mental health. It has to be denial on the teachers, parents. It's almost like everybody is afraid of what might happen, so they hold back.
They don't say anything. But that brings me around to you guys. You're responsible for yourself and your self-care, and you need to do that, and I'm glad we're heading in that direction. What about the responsibility of the guy in the car next to you? The guy in the seat next to you in the car? You guys have each other's back if there's a firefight. You have each other's back if there's an argument. You have each other's back. Do you have each other's back when you go back to the station and somebody seems off? Are you guys working on how to deal with that, so that if I see Bob's having a problem, instead of saying, well, let me cover for you, Bob, actually call it out and saying, let's get you something?
I think that's getting better. I do think,
because that's important.
Yes. I think there's a communication when there's an inkling of a problem. I think there's a communication, and then there's resources that can be used. Now, there's not obvious resources. There isn't. You really have to go looking. You have to look for the right resources. You have to look for.
But we're seeing more and more peer support teams, and that's who you want to go talk to.
But see, this is how I met you. I am a peer support.
Yes,
officer.
Yes. I love it.
So I met you and Karen through peer support. Before, when I was in the unit, I did not have this resource. If I needed to send someone somewhere, I only had the insurance company, and the insurance company sends you wherever there's a first opening. But now it's not like I'm bypassing insurance, but now I have places I can place
Yes.
people. I did not have that before.
And it's a good part of getting to know your community again, which we kind of fell away from. Even during COVID, there wasn't as much exposure to the community and stuff. But
COVID wasn't bad for
maybe
law enforcement.
Oh, really?
It was more bad for the civilian because we were working.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we were still going to work. We were still hanging out. We were still talking. We were still patrolling.
Oh, I
We
know,
were still
but
dealing with
spending
stuff.
time in the community at events and things like that.
We were still out there. We were
You were still doing that?
we were still clearing too many kids playing soccer at the same time. We were
Okay.
still going out there, and we were together.
Yeah.
The officers were together. So for us, I want to say it was more of a bonding experience. I was on overnights during COVID, and I had a team of 8, and I almost want to say we had a good time. We weren't, because we weren't. I love being stuck at home. I have a cat, a husband.
Yeah, I
am a great cook. I loved staying at home.
Too, yeah.
I loved my patio. We did what we just hung out, watched TV, and we kept on the phone with the family. So for us, it wasn't hard, but I see how if you are by yourself, if you can get Instacart 6 bottles of wine to your house at any time of the day, and you can't leave, it's a problem. You can start a problem. You can start a habit.
Absolutely. We saw a lot of that.
If you're not, at least I know I'm going to work tomorrow. If you know you're not going to work for a month,
right. I guess I'm thinking about back in the, when the officer was like, they had the beat cops who would know every store owner and every person. And, we've kind of fallen away from that just as a society because everything's faster. It's all electronic.
Too many people.
Too many
people. Yeah.
But it's important to know your community,
Yes.
isn't it? Because you were just saying about resources. In every community, there's a handful of churches. And in those churches, there's probably several programs that are great for families, great for people with problems. And, and that used to be the center for help was the churches. There's hospitals, there's treatment centers, there's psychological hospitals, there's doctors and therapists in our communities. And getting to know the people in your community is a real asset for you to do your job.
Yes, I did a couple tours of places where you can go to really just decompress and get the help that you need. But not just that, you get the gym, you get the pool, you get other stuff that is like, okay, this is a mental health wellness vacation. I am going to get better, and when I get better, I will go back to work and be better, and I'll be a better officer, a better parent, a better partner, better everything. The other thing is the uniform makes you very tired. You have all these pounds on you all day. It hurts your shoulders, hurts your back. It's a lot of stress.
How much does that weigh? Those belts you guys wear.
20.
People don't realize, but when you're up close on those, the packets aren't like this little skinny packet. They're like that, and they're sticking out. And then they got the gun and the mace and the this and the that.
This is a lot of equipment. Which is why
and a radio.
When I am able to retire, I will prefer to not go back because I want freedom of just wearing what I'm wearing because it's so much more comfortable on the body.
Yeah.
So the public perceives you as whatever. You show up. They don't know that you might have something going on from the call before. You are so tired because you have all this equipment on. You are directing traffic in South Florida sun for 45 minutes, so you're sweating from the inside. Everything is hot, you're uncomfortable, and you still have to be professional. And they are. The officers are. They come to you and they are professional.
All right, well, we're not going to ignore this because you're talking very openly and honestly about police work, and I love that. And again, how many police officers do you think are in? Let's pick what's a big department? Like Miami. Miami's big, right?
A couple thousand, yeah.
Couple thousand.
With 2,300 officers.
Okay. All right. So
maybe
and then
patrol is like a little less.
Then some of the smaller towns, we got maybe 100, then 50, and then maybe 500 in some of the other ones. So if you thought about how many police officers do you think there could possibly be in America?
Oh.
I mean, it's just millions, right?
Millions.
A couple million police officers.
Not enough.
And every year, there's 3 or 4 police officers that do something that is not cool.
Yeah, that happens.
We know it happens.
Yep.
We know that the thing up in, we know all of that. We know that, The guy had obvious problems because he had been written up before. And again, that might be one of those times when one of his buddies should have said, hey, maybe he shouldn't be out there.
Right. Maybe we should put him through some services.
And people should have all stood up instead of just covering and making everything okay. But does it make you mad that you got millions of police officers? Now you got maybe in the year 2003, maybe 5 officers did something really bad. So they say all of them are bad. Does that make you angry?
No.
Does that upset you?
No, it really doesn't. I don't.
There's really no other profession where 1 or 2 people do something wrong and then they say that they're all bad.
Right, because it doesn't make the news. Every time a surgeon removes the wrong organ, doesn't make the news. Or every time a doctor kills a patient, doesn't make the news. And that happens a lot.
But they sensationalize this stuff.
Look at what I would like on the news is the violence against women. The crimes against women right now, the domestic rape, just street violence against just women have been under, and it's underreported to me. I look on the news every day, Channel 10, Channel 7. There's domestic violence. Women are getting killed left and right, and we look at it and we're like, oh, it's another domestic.
It's not sexy for the news or something, right. I guess, right? It's not sensational.
And are domestic preventable? I don't, at this point, I don't know because they're so prevalent. So I don't take when the entire, and it never feels like the entire country.
It really isn't, but there's just that veil that went over, especially with the thing with the throat and the guy who, George and then Floyd. That went on George Floyd.
I mean, there was no police officer that looked at it and said, ooh, that was okay. That's what we do. That's not.
Nobody did that. Everybody said, this guy should not have been out there.
Yes.
And it's not. Here's the thing that's like, if that guy reached a point after how many years in service, and he reached that point, it's not really, I mean, he might not know that he's going over the deep end. As a matter of fact, most people who are suffering mentally don't know that they're suffering mentally. They need somebody to stop them and say, what's going on? This isn't right. And it seems like they just kept pushing that. But anyway, not everybody, but it brings such a cloud over things.
It brings a cloud, but
and so now you got to deal with that bullshit too.
I do, but you know what? I just don't take it personal. It's not about me.
That's a great attitude.
It's not about me. It's about one officer out there somewhere. I know how to do my job. I do it well, and I go home and I can look myself in the mirror before I go to bed and say, "You had a good day," and we're going to do it again tomorrow. I guess maybe
you're held to a different standard. Because there's not a company out there that doesn't have somebody who comes on, gets the job, screws the job up, and gets fired. I'm sure even in departments, people join the department and they don't make it very long just because they don't work out.
Yes. It's not for everybody.
Unfortunately, some people, when they don't work out, they'll do something that draws attention. But it's like any other place. They shouldn't have been a police, but it's just you guys are held to such a high standard that all of you are supposed to be perfect.
We are,
and
it depends on political environment. Who's in the office? Who's not in the
then they
office.
Politicize it. You guys get held, and then they start talking.
Then they change laws. Then they change the laws back. They find these laws were not preventing. There was a law that changed when I started. There was a law you couldn't play music in your car very loud, or you could get a ticket. It was like audible from so many feet. They did away with the law. Well, obviously, people were complaining that people were driving around blasting music left and right because the law is back. So things change, and then they quietly change back to where it was working.
Wow.
Some stuff is not working, but a lot of the laws are working.
Listen, you guys do, if you go through some of the places, every city, every town has their I guess, depressed areas or areas of higher crime. There's always a little bit. For some small towns, it could be 3 blocks long. For some cities, it could be half or 1/4 of the city.
Or the entire city.
Yeah, or the entire city in some places. Oh, my God. You guys are all dealing with all of this stuff. And still, you have to go in and treat everybody with dignity and respect. And you do that. 99.99% of all the police officers do their job wonderfully.
I agree.
And I just wish people would understand that.
They're also human.
They're human. They got to deal with this shit.
Yeah, like I don't want my parents to be victims of crimes. I don't want my family to be a victim of crime. I would want any police officer that encounters my parents, if they were victimized or if they needed something, to treat them like I would treat their parents if I was in front of them, not knowing. You know what I mean?
You'll probably get a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks too.
Oh Oh yes.
Oh yeah, it's like,
sure.
oh, here's what I would have done if I was there. Bullshit, you would have wet yourself and passed out. That's what you would have done.
But a lot of people tell me that. A lot of people tell me that their fight or flight is really just flying out of there as fast as it possibly can. A lot of my friends are like, I don't know how you do this. I would just turn around and leave.
Now that's practice, training, and discipline, isn't it?
It's also the personality. The police out there, the good officers that are out there that are working every day, have a personality that allows them to just go and deal with it. Like, how do you deal with it? When there's a fire, how do you walk through the fire? You get through it. You get through it because on the other side of it, it's going to end. Everything comes to an end. It's going to end. And however you walk through it is going to dictate how you feel later during the day.
Absolutely.
And you have to live like that. And a lot of officers do that. They walk through the fire and then they go home and they're like, you know what? I'm going to go on a run. I'm going to go do a cold plunge, which I don't know where they came from. I can't do that. But they go work out. They go to the sauna. They talk to their friends. And a lot don't have issues with drinking. They don't have issues with drugs. And they keep themselves up to date with their mental health because they want to. Because they know one day the career is going to be over. And you have to do something else. And you don't want to live a life.
You don't want to retire broken down either. You want to retire healthy.
You want to retire healthy. You want to retire financially stable. You want to retire mentally healthy. So you hop on the 90-day cruise and go around the world with your spouse while you cash out your sick leave and you start a new life. And a lot of police officers retire and they heart attack, stroke, suicide. Yeah. They lose their identity.
We're seeing that change now because of the attention.
Yes.
I see it a lot with some firefighters I work with up in Palm Beach Gardens. They got programs where there's people there that their sole purpose is to make sure that their people retire healthy.
Yes.
And they took everything from diet to exercise to mental health to simply decompressing and having fun.
Yeah, just having fun, just letting loose.
Like you said, you like to go home and say, I'm changing hats now. I don't want to walk in the house and be officer. I want to walk in the house and be Sabina. I want to be me.
Cat mom.
And I want my cat, my book, my backyard, or my pool.
I read a lot. Yeah. I read a lot from all kinds of self-help books to I love, and this is so terrible. I love recovering people in addiction, recovering from addiction.
Yeah.
I love their stories. Catherine Knapp. She was, it's In Love with a Drink.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
She has this book. She passed away from lung cancer, crazy, because she was such an addict all those years. But I read that book and I was like floored with what she accomplished while being in full addiction.
You'll read my book when I get it done, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
I will.
Excellent.
I will definitely read it.
Excellent. So, I mean, there's so much. I hope we can revisit this again because there's so many good things to talk about. 16 years, we're heading in the right direction, right?
I think so.
It's a different,
I think so because look at it. It's just one me, right? When I finish my 22 and a half or 25 years, I am already planning on giving back to the police community. Yeah. So if there's more people like me that at the end are going to take that turn and, okay, I did all these years. I know what that's about. Now I'm going to help out. If we just have a few people like me turn around and help, more will come and shifts will happen.
And I'm sure there's people out there that join because they want a gun and a badge. I'm sure there's always some of those, but most of them join, I think, because like you, they want to give back to the community. They want to create a better society for their families and themselves. They're
inspired by their family members, their fathers, mothers who are police officers, uncles, aunts, sisters, brothers. They want to be part of the community and they come out.
And it's a good job.
It's a good job.
And there's a lot of different things in the police department. It's not just going out on patrol. There's communications. There's this, there's that. There's a lot of different areas. So they should check that out. You're saying that the enrollment is a little bit down as far as maybe we got more people retiring, less people signing up, whatever it is.
It's not an attractive job right now because of social media. Not towards the police. There are just venues in TikTok, Instagram that show, or at least make it seem like you can make a lot of money in those industries. So why risk your life,
Yeah.
put on pounds and pounds of equipment and go out there and deal with crime when you can just make videos on TikTok and make tons of money doing that? So the new guys, the younger guys are in college going, why would I do that when I can do this?
Now, let's talk generally to people. If they're thinking about doing it, what should they do? If they're thinking about it, and what age should they start looking at it?
Any age. You can be in your 40s, you can be in your mid, at the end.
But if somebody's like a
want
16-year-old and they're thinking, I really want to go into law enforcement, are there things that they can do now?
Yes, there's Explorer programs out there. They can join that. There's ROTC in high schools. It's more of a military type thing, but it translates to police
my brother did
work.
ROTC,
Yeah,
then he
ROTC
went
is
into the
great.
Navy afterwards.
Yeah, my goddaughter is right now finished high school, and she's already committed to the Navy. She's being shipped off to boot camp in February.
Oh,
She's
God bless
running
her.
the half marathon with me in Miami.
Fantastic.
January 28th, and then a couple of days later, she's going into the service, and she wants to be a police officer.
And that's a beautiful thing.
So we look for someone like that from younger age. That's what
what's the best idea is just stop at your local police department and somebody will talk to you, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely. Not like you're not allowed to go in those places and ask questions.
Of course you are.
I think a lot of people are like, oh, you can't go to the police department. They're going to arrest you.
You can even go online and look up the city or the municipality and see if they have programs. They usually advertise them online. And now a lot of departments have social media too. You can check out the different social medias and see what departments are doing what.
And it's an excellent opportunity for people coming out of military service as well, right?
It's different than the military, but similar. Well,
I mean, if you sign up, you do military, you do 4 or 5 years, you get a little education, you do this. It's a nice next step if you'd like to go into that.
Yeah, it has great benefits, gives a great retirement still.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How about for women, though? 16 years. Are we seeing more women getting involved?
More women, yes.
I know you mentioned a couple women back then.
More women getting promoted. There's several female chiefs in Miami-Dade.
I know. I met a few of them. Yeah. They're brilliant people.
Yeah. The girls are taking over.
Yeah.
The girls are coming out. And they're needed. The public loves a female police officer. They love they love the balance. There's the male and there's the female, and there's somewhere in the middle they can find what they want from both of them on the call, and it works out. And
women can do what men do.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I can't go because men are stronger and I won't make it through the training or this or that.
So we go through the same academy, right? We jump the same walls. We take the same tests. We go to the range. We drive cars. We do the same thing. Everybody does the same thing. Everybody has to pass a test at the end. Everybody has to go into the department, pass the field training, same type of training. So it's the same, you're on the same level. And one thing about police departments and women, we have equal pay. We make what the male officers make. So
you should.
Yeah, we should.
It's a shame we should even have to mention that.
Other industries don't do that.
It's still not there.
They're still not there.
And I know there has been small shifts in some of the training methods as well, where I know this for a fact in fire departments, and I think the police department did as well, where it's less about the physical strength of I can lift this much and more about stamina and endurance.
Absolutely.
And women, stamina and endurance have an edge over men.
Yeah.
They actually, so they balance it out because it's like it doesn't do you any good that you can lift 300 pounds if you can only lift it for 10 seconds, then you're shot.
Right.
So they find a way to balance it. So women you're on more of an even playing field.
Yeah, you can just muscle your way out of it sometimes.
Yeah. I you know what, Sabina, Sergeant Shapiro, I mean, brilliant. You must be so proud, Sergeant. What's after Sergeant? What's next?
Captain. It will be Captain.
Oh, is that coming soon?
Let's hold off on that.
Okay.
Let's just be happy where we are.
No, we're thrilled with where we are. I don't know how that works, but Captain, I like that. But Sergeant, it's great. And again, we didn't mention your particular department, because we don't want to make this about one department. This is about police service as a whole, and about being a first responder as a whole. And any final thoughts you have that we're going into 2024, we're moving into a new year, we're further away from some of the crises we faced, but I'm sure there's more ahead of us. What would you like to see change in the next couple of years, or what direction do you think we need improvement in?
I would like not just police, like entire society,
Society's fine.
just
Yeah.
just to come together. There's no right, left. Elections are coming. We have to find a median where we're happy. There can't be violence on each side. We can't be constantly bickering and throwing punches at each other, and the media going crazy, or they're just feeding off of these things and they're panicking everybody. Everybody needs to really come together and accept that we're one. We have to get along. We have to get along. We can't fight over parking spaces at Trader Joe. We can't, push all ladies out of the way to get the less donut at Dunkin'. Like we have to slow down and appreciate each other, and that's for police and just everybody out there.
And instill this in your children, please.
Yes,
instill this in the children.
There's just too much negativity, just constantly pounding at each other.
Right.
So I feel like the mental health shift is for everybody. Law enforcement needs it because they're more exposed to traumatic events.
Right.
But everybody as a whole, if they can just slow down and take care of themselves, be responsible for themselves, they will make a huge shift, especially for the United States.
If we can reduce the mental health crisis, we'll reduce the crime crisis as well. It's a natural.
And we'll be happier. People will be happier.
Oh, my God. Absolutely. Sabina, I thank you so much for your service. I think you're fantastic. And, all the people at your department and throughout South Florida that I've been working with, brilliant, brilliant people. My hat's off to you for doing a great job.
Thank you.
And
people like you make it worth it.
Well, thank you.
Because I'm doing it. So you walk out here without having to worry about anything bad happening.
Yeah. Well, there's one guy that pisses me off down the street. I'll give you his name later. We'll go get him.
Go.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, folks, let's go into the new year. It's all great, and we're going into an election year, and there's going to be a lot of diversity going on. And it's amazing to me that people will hold up signs about how I love America, but you clearly hate the other half of Americans who don't think the way you think. You can't love America unless you love the people. And, you show kindness and grace. Disagreement is part of growth. You argue and you debate, but you don't fight. You argue and you debate, and that's how you grow. So that's what I'd like to see us all move towards this year, whichever political proclivities you have, and whatever you think. Share what you think. Listen to the other side, and then the solution is always somewhere in the middle, don't you think?
That's fine. Yes,
absolutely.
Let's meet in the middle.
And spend some time with your first responders. Stop in. There's nothing wrong if you're baking some cookies, make a few extras, drop it off at the police station, or the fire station or wherever, and make sure you thank those who serve us in and out of the uniforms. Thank them for their service, and be proud. Be proud that they're out there serving us. And I know they're proud to do it. And, and I want to thank Sabina Shapiro, Sergeant, right down here in South Florida. Doing a great job with all of her wonderful people. Please send my love back to all of them. And for all of you out there, thank you so much for spending time with us right here on The Calling, our first responder podcast right here from the Sober Life Studios. Don't forget to share this with your friends and subscribe. We will catch you next time. Bye-bye now.